Hey guys, it's Misty from the Book Rat, and it's time for my November Rewind. So this is a look back at what I read in November with a quick thumbs up, thumbs down rating. I kicked off the month with Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. I talked a little bit about this in October, which is when I started it, and how I figured it would probably get a thumbs up, and no surprise, it does. I really love the story, the world that Marissa has set out. I love her writing. I like where she took the story in this one, and I'm really curious to see where she goes in Crest, the next book. Very engaging. I tore through it. I really like Scarlet. I'm gonna hang on to my full review for a while because it's not due out for a bit. If you like the first Lunar Chronicles book, Cinder, and have been thinking about asking for this one for Christmas, pre-ordering it, whatever, I would suggest you do so. I read Days of Blood and Starlight by Laini Taylor, which looks like this. And I definitely need to get a finished copy because I loved it, of course. Thumbs up. I think I actually liked it more than the first book, which kind of surprising. I love the first book. I thought the first book, though, was a little bit slow in the beginning. And this one, even though it plunges you right in and is kind of confusing in the beginning, it wasn't slow at all, and I was just gripped. I loved seeing more of the Eretz side of things. I love seeing Carew kind of confront who she was as Madrigal and the people she knew and the things she has to do now. And I loved seeing Akiva have to confront the things that he's done too. Stunning across the board. A little less lyrical maybe than the first book, but just as flippin' amazing. Ask the Passengers by A.S. King. I talked about how I did my A.S. King happy dance when this came. Basically, she hasn't had a misstep for me. I've loved every single thing I've read by her, and every single thing has been really different. She doesn't just repeat herself over and over. She does always have this sort of magical realist quality that I love, and she really tries to get at the heart of things, which I love. But her plots and her characters, she changes it up every time, and I really love that. I think Astrid is someone a lot of people will be able to relate to in the way she is just sort of questioning everything and she doesn't know who she is yet. Or even if she does know who she is, she's scared to be that person. She's scared to just say, hey world, this is who I am. So it's done in a really relatable way, and Astrid herself is just kind of lovely. The things she does, the way she thinks, you just kind of have to root for her. So as always, huge thumbs up, and I hope more people read it and read A.S. King in general, because she's fantastic. Early on in the month, I don't remember why, the book Mr. Fitzwilliam Darcy, Last Man in the World, popped into my head, which you may recall I've already read twice since this summer. I got to thinking about it, and what do you know, I had to read it again. So for the third time since the summer, I read this, and once again, I see flaws with it, but once again, I really could not care less. As I've mentioned before in every other time that I read this, it's very maudlin and very steamy, but it's just so engaging, just so compelling. Each time I've read it in one sitting, and I'm sure I will read it again. Hopefully not this year, though, because 3 times is plenty. Eternally Yours by Kate Tiernan. This is the last book of the Immortal Beloved series. I mentioned in my book haul that chances were I was going to work it in to this month even though I really didn't have room. And between the time the book haul was recorded and went up, I had already read it. So, thumbs up. I love every bit of the series. I love Nastasia so much, and I'm really gonna miss her. And Rain. Oh, I'm gonna miss Rain. This series is the only thing I've read by Kate Tiernan, but it will not be the last. I absolutely highly recommend this. And while we're talking about things that I wasn't supposed to read this month, but did, Faefever by Karen Ray Moning. I did put it in my list of potential reads, but since I hadn't actually finished up my pile of 2 reads, I probably shouldn't have picked this up, but it was just calling my name. Even though I had already read about half of it and said, you know, well, it shouldn't take me too long because I already read half, I needed to go back and just start over. So I just read the whole thing and loved every minute of it. And once again, she screwed me with the ending, and now I have to read book 4. Curses, Karen Ray Moning. Lastly, I have 2 books that I didn't quite finish, but for different reasons. The first is Blackwood by Gwen de Bond. Okay, I got around halfway through this, and really just wasn't caring so much, so I set it to the side, read 2 other books, maybe more than that actually, and said maybe I'd go back to it, and I just can't seem to want to pick this up. It's not that it's ever necessarily bad. I think people will like this, and it was recently picked up by MTV to be a TV show, so I'm sure plenty more people will be reading this. But it's too easy for me, for my liking. Things just happen way too easily, and the main character just accepts things way too easily. She will just flip-flop. She hates a character, and then she's devoted to them. She's worried about something, and then she's like, oh, whatever. Her dad dies, and she doesn't really blink an eye. I mean, it's just... It feels very young. It feels like very immature writing. It's just barely scratching the surface, and I don't like that. It's really hard for me to connect to characters in that case, and it's just not what I'm looking for in a book. Like, who doesn't want tension? The character should be knocked around a little bit. They need to have something that they're struggling against, even if it's not a physical something, even if it's just mentally they're, you know, trying to overcome something, as in Ask the Passengers. There needs to be something that is driving the plot. If half of an island of people go missing, and you might be able to figure it out, you're gonna do your damnedest, absolutely. But if your dad dies in the process, you're also gonna be thinking about that. And maybe if I finish the book, there would come a point where that does happen and she starts to really think, and maybe she's just in shock still, except that she treats everything this way. I don't have the energy right now to make myself care. It's Gwenda's job to make me care, and I didn't. So I think people will like this. Wasn't for me though, so I'm not giving it a thumbs up or thumbs down, but I'm just setting it to the side. And lastly, Watchmen by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. This isn't that I'm not finishing it, but I can't rate it yet. I just started it too late in the month and I'm not done yet. I was anticipating flying through it a little faster than I did, but at this point, I don't really care about any of the characters enough that I'm really wanting to pick this up all the time or finding it gripping. So I'm just kind of picking it up in bits and pieces. I'm hoping that a point will come that I do really care. I really like the way it's structured and I like where I think it's going. But so far, nothing's really grabbed me and made me read it yet. So it's sort of getting read in between things. But it was the Stack of 5 winner, so I do have to finish it and get a video review up. So I'm gonna do that this month, I promise. And that is what I read in November. Let me know what you think of my ratings or what you thought if you've read them. And if you do your own November rewind or wrap up or whatever, link it up as a video response and or as a vlog or blog post on the linky at thebookrat.com, also below. Make sure you check out my December TBR, which is scattered. And if you're curious about any of the books, there are links to all of them below. That is all for me for now. Until next time, happy reading!